Hello and welcome back to our series. In part 1, we saw how a new political leader rose to power in the early 1930s. Now, in part 2, we'll explore what happened next as he solidified his control over the country and set the stage for major global events. Once the leader secured full authority, Germany underwent a dramatic transformation. The democratic republic that had existed for years was systematically dismantled. All other political parties were banned, leaving only one party in control. This created a single-party state where all political power was concentrated at the top. The government was reorganized to ensure loyalty, and key positions in the civil service, judiciary, and education system were filled with party members. The federal system, which gave states a degree of autonomy, was also abolished. All regional governments were brought under the direct control of the central government in Berlin. This process, known as Gleichschaltung, or coordination, aimed to bring every aspect of society into line with the party's ideology. Independent organizations, from trade unions to youth clubs, were either dissolved or absorbed into new party-controlled entities. The idea was to create a unified national community, a Volksgemeinschaft, where individual interests were secondary to the collective will of the nation, as defined by the party and its leader. For ordinary people, daily life began to change in profound ways. The new government launched massive public works projects like building the famous Autobahn highway system. These projects, along with a significant increase in military production, helped reduce the high unemployment that had plagued the country for years. Many people were grateful to have jobs again after the difficult economic times of the previous decade. A sense of national pride and unity was heavily promoted. Large rallies, parades, and public spectacles became common, designed to showcase the strength and discipline of the new regime and foster a sense of belonging among the population. All of youth organizations became mandatory for young people, where they were taught the party's ideology and participated in physical training and community projects. The government also sought to influence culture. Modern art was condemned, and a new style of heroic art was promoted, celebrating themes of family, work, and national strength. The media, newspapers, radio, and film were all brought under state control. They broadcast a constant stream of propaganda, praising the leader and his policies while carefully censoring any dissenting views. Life became more structured and controlled, but for many who had longed for stability and national renewal, these changes were initially welcomed. Meanwhile, on the international stage, tensions were beginning to rise across Europe. The leader openly declared his intention to undo the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, which had ended World War I and imposed harsh conditions on Germany. In 1935, he announced that Germany would begin to rearm its military, a direct violation of the treaty. A year later, in 1936, German troops marched into the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone along the border with France. This was another bold challenge to the post-war order. Other European powers like Britain and France were hesitant to react strongly. They were still recovering from the last war and hoped to avoid another conflict. This policy of appeasement, of giving in to demands to keep the peace, only emboldened the leader further. He saw that the other nations were not willing to stand up to him. He also formed alliances. An agreement was signed with Italy, led by its own authoritarian ruler, creating what became known as the Rhomberlin Axis. Later, Germany and Japan signed the Anti-Comintern Pact, a pact directed against international communism, which Italy also joined. These alliances created new power blocks and increased the sense of division in the world. The leader's ambitions for expansion became increasingly clear. His stated goal was to unite all German-speaking peoples into a single, larger nation. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria in an event known as the Anschluss. German troops marched into Austria, and the country was incorporated into Germany with little international opposition. The leader's next target was the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a large German-speaking population. This created a major international crisis. Britain and France, desperate to avoid war, negotiated the Munich Agreement in September 1938. They agreed to allow Germany to annex the annexed Sudetenland in exchange for a promise that this would be his final territorial demand in Europe. The British Prime Minister returned home famously declaring peace for our time. However, this peace was short-lived. In March 1939, just 6 months later, German forces occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, breaking the promises made at Munich. This act finally convinced Britain and France that the policy of appeasement had failed, and that the leaders' ambitions could not be contained through negotiation. They pledged to defend Poland, which was widely seen as the next target. The final steps toward a major global conflict were now being taken. To avoid a two-front war, the leader made a stunning and unexpected move. In August 1939, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, its ideological archenemy. The world was shocked by this agreement between two seemingly irreconcilable powers. Secretly, the pact included a protocol to divide Poland and other parts of Eastern Europe between them. With the Soviet Union neutralized, the path was clear for an invasion of Poland. On September 1, 1939, German forces crossed the Polish border, marking the beginning of the Second World War in Europe. 2 days later, Britain and France, honoring their guarantee to Poland, declared war on Germany. The early stages of the conflict saw rapid German advances using a new military tactic known as blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This involved fast, concentrated attacks using tanks and air power to overwhelm the enemy. Poland was defeated within weeks. The following year, in 1940, Germany launched a surprise invasion of Denmark and Norway, followed by a swift and devastating offensive against France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. By the summer of 1940, German forces had conquered much of Western Europe, and Britain stood alone. Throughout this period of expansion and conflict, the leader's power within Germany became absolute. His early successes, both in reviving the economy and in foreign policy, made him incredibly popular. He was portrayed as a visionary leader who had restored Germany's strength and honor. Any remaining internal opposition was silenced. The military, initially skeptical, was won over by the rearmament program and the string of stunning victories. His control was total, and his word was law. The entire state was geared towards achieving his goals, and the nation was now fully engaged in a massive war that would soon engulf the entire globe. The decisions made in the late 1930s had set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of history forever. The early victories were astonishing, but they would lead to a wider, more brutal conflict than anyone could have imagined. What happened when the war expanded to the east? How did the tide begin to turn? We'll explore that and more in part 3 of our series. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.